I am William Gilchrist Anderson, born and reared in Americus, Georgia. I can tell you this, I always knew I wanted to be a doctor from the time I was old enough to begin to think, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? Maybe because I felt as though doctors, more than any other professions, helped people to live a better life. My mother and my father were very patient of me with my unrealistic ambitions to become a doctor because there had never been a physician in my family. They did do this. My mother had a small coop where she raised chickens. She said, okay, William, you can treat the sick chickens. So my first exposure to anything that even remotely resembled the practice of medicine was treating chickens because they had an illness that could be treated. And that was my start when I'm 10, 11, 12 years old. I did not know any better because ambitions far exceeded my ability. The first opportunity I had to get exposed to the field of medicine is when I did something that was literally unheard of in my hometown of Americus, Georgia. A small town, and I am the only one who was born and reared there who said, I want to be a doctor. And there were very, very few black physicians in the state of Georgia. World War II was going on. I was a teenager. I saw an opportunity to get into the military by pushing my age up a year or two and volunteering to get in the Navy, because I saw an opportunity once I got in the military to ask for, let me get somewhere in the field of medicine. So yes, as I was on the ship now, being sent to the Philippine Islands, where the war is winding down, mind you, and I'm the only one of color on that ship who says, I want to get into the hospital corps. There is a shortage of hospital apprentices, hospital corpsmen, and certainly no such thing as a black doctor in the Navy. So, but he called for those who had an interest in medicine. I put up my hands. He says, okay, come on up here. So as we approached the Philippine Islands, and he says, those of you who wanted to get in the field of medicine, there is a hospital apprentice program in the southern part of the Philippine Islands. So they let me stay aside until the opportunity came to get on a ship where I was the only one from the Navy from Southwest Georgia who said, I want to get in the field of medicine, and they let me in. That was the beginning of fulfillment of my ambition to one day. I wanted to become a doctor, but you got to start somewhere. But that was the beginning of letting me get exposed to the field of medicine. It was just a matter of time then before I could pursue my ambitions of becoming a doctor. I never gave it up. I stayed in the Navy for about 2 years. As soon as I got back, I started looking for how can I become a doctor? Well, there were only 2 medical schools in the United States that took primarily black aspiring physicians, Howard and Meharry. The opportunity came for me to get to know a different profession. I did not know there were MD physicians and DO physicians. I did not know that. The only black doctor in the city of Albany, in the county of Sumter, was Willie Joe Reese, who was an osteopathic physician. And I'm asking, what is that? But then I went to visit him, and I saw he was treating all the patients that came to him just like an MD from Meharry or Howard. I did not realize that time that was just the beginning of the merger of MDs and DOs. They all wind up with the same license, the same credentials, the same opportunities. And I wound up in Detroit, Michigan, of all places, where the DO and the MDs began to get the same credentials for practice. But it gave me the opportunity now to really start an independent practice of medicine. From that point on, after a few years, I said, now I want to become a surgeon. Okay, so after 4 years of residency training, then I became a surgeon. And Detroit was one of few that had a large number of osteopathic physicians in all the specialties. But you have to have a will and a determination to get to where you want to go. And don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. I refuse to accept you can't do it because you're black. I don't go for that. I could not look beyond how the races were strategically separated. I did not like the fact that I could not get a sandwich at a lunch counter in a grocery store in America, Georgia. Was that enough? I could not go to the same school. All those schools that I wanted to go to were right across the street. The one I had to go to was 5 miles away. And you think, why did I start the civil rights movement? I was always enough. You want me to give you 10 more? God works in mysterious ways. Right, Dad? Who would have thought that Abernathy and I, college students, wound up in the same college in Montgomery, Alabama, mind you, and in Georgia, Martin Luther King Jr. was in a church 1 block from the church I attended when I was in Atlanta. Martin Luther King and I would meet periodically. Ralph Abernathy would meet with his daddy, with her daddy. And as these congregations have people like us would meet together for certain meetings, we got to know each other. And one of the things that brought us together was we got involved in civil rights. So Martin Luther King with me, Ralph Abernathy, and it was sort of natural because Martin Luther King and my in-laws lived on a couple of blocks away in Atlanta. And they were leaders in their church congregations with me in the middle. And we all had the same objective. Can we find a way so that blacks can get the right to register and vote? That was the beginning of a union that would last for many years. I was a troublemaker because when I led marches downtown, white folk wouldn't come to town. I made the peaceful protest, not I got involved in it. And Martin Luther King would make it, he made the peaceful protest also. In other words, I did not know what he was doing, he didn't know what I was doing. We were brought together as a result of what we were doing that was beneficial to our people. In other words, we both abhorred the racism, the segregation and discrimination that existed in the United States. Mind you, we both were brought up in Baptist churches. And what started out as maybe 12 people in a demonstration became 50, became 100 in Georgia and in Alabama. I shut down Albany, Georgia completely. And they said, you are a disruptor of the whole system. I was sentenced to 20 years in a federal penitentiary outside of Atlanta. What did I do? I went to the probation officer. I said, what am I to do? He said, wait just a minute. He says, the judge sentenced you to 20 years, but he suspended the sentence. It's still on the record. I was sentenced to 20 years in a federal penitentiary for what I did. But he said, I'm going to suspend it. But I can tell you this, the chief of police in Albany, Georgia, that locked me up many times, Larry Pritchett, who was the chief of police, he contacted me after he was no longer chief of police and I had been invited back to Albany for a mass meeting. He contacted me. I want to go back down there with you holding hands. What does that mean? So what it says was, it was not the person, it was the system that required him as chief of police to segregate. That was not him. I'm proud to have been a part of what this country, this nation, what the world has become as a result of people like me who wanted to make this a better place for more people. I'm proud to have been part of that history. Somebody has to set the example. So I guess I made that impression on my son and my grandson. So my son also became a physician, then he became a surgeon, then he became a urologist, and now his son became a robotic urological surgeon. Ah! How far can you go? And then now there are 5 doctors in my immediate family. Today, I can tell you in retrospect, every state in the United States and many foreign countries recognize that degree, and actually, MDs and DOs now work hand in hand partnerships. Don't give up on the ambition that you have just because it does not appear to be an easy thing to do. If you are determined to have an objective that has meaning, don't give it up. Be a part of the change, is what I would tell them. So yes, I did stay on course, and now I teach doctors. How's that? I got to believe God works in his mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. He plants his feet upon the seas and rides on every storm. In other words, if you have an ambition, something you really want to do that's going to help people, don't give up. Don't keep your eye off the objective. Keep your determination. And let me say this finally. If you do not make this a better place, we didn't need you. Can I say that again? If you don't help to make this a better place for somebody, we don't need you.